All right, welcome everyone to another Cultural Coin series conversation. Really excited to have you all join. I know you all have been with us through many of our conversations, and this is going to be another fantastic one. My name is Dana Wilson. I am the CEO and founder of CHIP, which stands for Changing How Individuals Prosper. And we're a financial services marketplace that makes it easier to find great financial professionals that are going to be joining you today. So I'm excited to pull them in for a fantastic conversation entitled Finance and Chill, Stress Free, tongue twister there, strategies for financial planning and really planning your overall future. So I'm excited to have them all come in and introduce themselves. So welcome to the stage, everyone. How are you all doing?
Good,
Wonderful.
good, doing good. Thanks.
Good,
Thanks
good.
for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Really excited to have you all in. I know this is like a hot topic, and it's also because you all have various backgrounds within the areas of ecosystem of financial services. So I'll just kind of let you all introduce yourselves, and then we'll just kind of jump into the conversation. Leah, since you are right on my side here on the screen, we'll start with you.
I knew I would be first for some reason. I'm Leah Davis. I'm the founder of Leah Davis Coaching. I'm a wealth and wellness coach for all women of color. And I have been a financial coach now for over 5 years. I've worked in financial services previously as a financial advisor, then went the nonprofit route as a senior financial coach for an Oakland based nonprofit. And now I am fully self employed and enjoying the ups and downs of all of that. And so happy to be here with all of you today in this wonderful conversation that we're going to have.
Awesome, and congratulations on all of that.
Thank you.
Catalina.
Well, hello everyone. My name is Catalina. I go by Cat. I work at Tobias Financial Advisors in sunny South Florida. I am a certified financial planner and certified tax specialist. I am very passionate about helping people achieve their financial goals. I personally came from an immigrant family, arrived in the US at the age of 8. And I jokingly tell my clients that I was the one that was the financial planner for my family because I learned how to write the numbers in English for my mom when she was writing her checks out. So very early on, I understood how important it was to be financially competent and feel confident around your personal finances. So that's what I hope to do with my clients.
Awesome. Thank you. Charlene.
Yes, hello everybody. My name is Charlene Hoskins. I am the founder and CEO of TPAS LLC. We are a property and casualty education firm that focuses on training, mentoring, and helping to license individuals to become insurance claims adjusters. And we do that both here in the US and in Ghana as well. And then we also have a independent adjusting firm that services the insurance industry for the overflow of claims that focuses on personal and business property claim handling. Thank you for having me.
Is it me? I freaked out. Oh, can you hear me? Okay, perfect. Okay, no, I'm sorry. My name is Brandon Dixon James. I'm a certified financial planner. I'm also the president and wealth manager at Resilient Wealth Management. I founded it probably about four years ago with my wife. I've been in the financial services industry for about 20 years now, and I left the corporate world about 11 years. Really passionate about making a difference and making an impact in the community. I have made my share of financial mistakes. They always say when you know better, you do better. And it took me a while to unwrap some of those habits that I created when I was younger. Those bad financial habits, even knowing better. So my purpose really is work with my clients to share with them that we're all going to make financial mistakes. I want to be a place where we can learn from those mistakes and also do better going forward. And no matter when you start, it's just a matter of starting and getting in the game. So that's really a lot of what we try and work with our clients and tell them that let's just do better for yourself and for the next generation, and begin to really create this generational world. Thanks for having me.
Can't hear you, Dana.
Yeah, I can't hear you there.
Now you're on mute.
You all can hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, I hear you.
Okay, perfect. I was like, of course it's me with the tech issues. Well, what I was saying was just that it's really exciting to have you all here, especially with your differentiating backgrounds, because you're each going to have a very unique perspective when it comes to that stress-free planning and what that means. So just kind of starting from that, and maybe you can start kicking us off, Catalina. What does that really mean when we're talking about having that stress-free life?
Well, it means that if a crisis is going to come your way, you know exactly what you're going to do in the midst of a crisis. That reduces your stress, right? Just knowing, hey, what happens if I get sick? Do I have the disability insurance to offset my paycheck? What happens if there's a death in the family? You know, is there life insurance? What happens if I have to, you know, I live in South Florida, I have to replace my roof, you know, and I have to pay the deductible to replace my roof? Do I have money in my portfolio? What happens with my health insurance, right? When I need it, can I save? So I think just making sure that your life is on track, obviously during the best times, but also being sure that the inevitable curveball that's thrown at you could be handled because you've assessed the risk and make sure that you are ready to address it in case of an emergency. Charlene, I'm sorry. I know you're in the insurance. I thought of a lot of insurance things as I'm thinking about Charlene too. It's really important, I think, to check
Yes.
the risk when you can.
You are definitely speaking my language, Catalina, especially after coming off of Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton, and being on the claim side, which sometimes I feel like we're the deliverer of bad news when we talk about deductibles, for instance. A lot of people who are in states that are like Florida, where you're prone to hurricanes and tornadoes and windstorms, because we just, we get busy. Life be lifing. And as a result, people mostly don't, even though they get the letter from the agent saying, hey, let's revisit your policy. Let's make sure, you have the proper coverages. Let's take another look at your premiums and your deductibles. Most people don't do it. And they're usually blindsided in a situation like a hurricane loss where they think the deductible's 500. It may very well be 5,000 or above. And right there, they're taken off guard financially with that. And then the second blow is, hey, that policy that purchased when you were quote unquote naming your price, you're not covered the way you think you are. You're not, you don't have certain protections because you simply didn't pay for it. And it hurts. It's a huge out of pocket cost that, again, during Katrina historically, which is why we had a lot of people just literally just walk away from their homes.
I think I saw a lot of that. I think a lot of times we deal with the idea of not planning. Sometimes it's because I think we're, kind of uncomfortable with the situation. It's one of those things of like, if you're on a weight loss journey, or you're on a credit trying to repair your credit, sometimes it's that actual number of seeing what you're actually doing. I think there's a fear in just wanting to know where you stand. And sometimes, but being ignorant is bliss until something forces you to look at it. And the problem is once you're forced to look at it, usually you find yourself, like you mentioned, Charlene, sometimes not quite prepared for all what may come with it. But that's what I found a lot of why people aren't necessarily prepared or not quite ready for the storms.
Yeah. I'm hearing everybody share their insight. And what's coming up for me in this moment is I'm so curious for anyone who's watching right now and we're having this conversation who is actually experiencing some angst over the topic, and how that may be showing up and how you may be feeling it within your body. And if there's any feeling of like, oh my goodness, I don't even want to hear this right now, to point out what Brandon was talking about, the uncomfortableness. And for those of us who have experienced any sort of financial trauma or stress in our lives, and when there have been things that have happened where the rug has been pulled from under us, and then just thinking about planning ahead, there could be some of that angst that's coming through. And just encourage anyone who's listening to this and watching this right now Just notice what you're noticing. As my mentor has always said, Sandra Davis of Sage Financial Solutions, got a shout out to her for that one because it is so true. Just notice what you're noticing right now and then be able to see how to reduce that along the way to have these very important conversations.
Leah, do you feel that once people are able to kind of not breathe through it, but kind of deal with their feelings and emotions, that they're more equipped at that point to start having some real conversations about it?
It comes along the lines of knowing what's happening, right? And just having that awareness. That's the first step, right? Because even I think you said earlier, when you know better, you do better. And oftentimes we can know so much about what to do, but the ability to move forward to do better, there could be that barrier, and people may not understand why that's occurring. And so, when someone can identify and acknowledge and be able to say and what's going on. So like even I'm always with my clients, and I'm a huge fan of a feelings wheel because so oftentimes we know about fear, sadness, and anger, right? But there's all kinds of other emotions around those that are like frustrated or pessimistic or anxious or pensive, right? So when you can name those and use like a feelings wheel, and then you can be like, okay, this is what's occurring for me right now. And then when they have support, either with like a therapist or with a coach or a combination, then they can be able to work through those emotions to start moving towards planning and taking action.
Yeah, and if I may add there, what I have seen, Brandon, and maybe using the same thing with your clients, is that often they don't really know what they have before they come to see you, right? Nothing is consolidated in one place. And so one of the first exercises that we do with our clients is a type of let's get organized meeting, right? What are the accounts that you have? Where are they located? Who are the accounts titled under? Who are the beneficiary designations? Are you making contributions or not? What is the purpose of each account? I mean, I've often met with individuals that don't know the difference between a retirement account and a brokerage account, and when do I deploy those? What do I use for an emergency fund? What is appropriate for an emergency fund? How much am I actually spending? And I think that once people get organized and they understand the moving parts, at least what I have seen is that the stress begins to reduce because they know where things are. And I think kind of knowing where things are is like going into your closet that's really disorganized and the things are still there, but you're just putting everything in the right place just gives you a sense of relief. And even if we're not necessarily making any changes to the financial situation, just having some clarity around where things are located and where to find it makes it a little bit more of a relaxed and in a situation that they feel they could begin to have a little bit more control over.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. When it comes to selecting, for instance, the right policy for your home or, for your vehicle, I know it's a lot. I call it I like to tell when I'm working with policyholders sometimes, what makes common sense doesn't always make insurance sense, right? And so it's about, reading the policy, but also about comprehending and asking the agent tons and tons of questions. I think when it comes to some of this, especially when we're approaching insurance, one, we have anxiety, right? As a community, um, insurance has had a really bad name for a while there, and it earned it, and then in addition to that, it's because there's so much misinformation, or should I say disinformation, that's out there that people just don't know, hey, how do I prepare for this? Or sometimes it's the opposite. I don't want to address it at all. It most likely won't happen to me or to my house or to my car. The chances are slim. And then bam, you're hit with something, right? And so the more organized you are, for instance, in your household, can help to reduce that stress. Staying closely connected with your agent or whoever you purchase your policy through, tapping into that and just saying, hey, do I have coverage for instance, this my diamond engagement ring that's, $10,000 when my husband purchased it, 20 years ago. There's a special form of insurance separately for special items like that, right? And just making sure that am am I protected in the way that I believe that I am? Because I think there's a misconception of I've got a policy, I'm good. I'm protected because I have a policy, but it may not be, everything that you would prefer it to be or that you think it to be. Making, for instance, documentation and listing out your personal items in your home, because that I've noticed on the adjuster side of things is the hardest part of the insurance claims process when the tornado has swept your home completely off the slab and now you have to itemize your personal items in your home or in your business. And who's going to remember, what's in the drawers? Leah, can you think right now, or even Brandon or Catalina, if I ask, or Dana, if I say, hey, give me a list of just the big furniture in your house, how long would that take you? You know what I mean? Let alone what's in the cabinets and in the drawers. But if we get
Yeah.
an idea and start working on that now before we're at the face of a disaster or a loss, it can definitely help to ease a lot of anxiety and stress when we're in the middle of the claims process.
I was rattling off in my mind everything as I'm sitting here going, oh, looks like I got something to do here.
Yeah. No, I think as I've listened to everyone, I mean, I think we all can agree. It's just sometimes dealing with the money is emotional,
Mhm.
and I think as a financial planner, my job is to help, much like all of us, like help our clients deal with that emotion of dealing with money. It's psychological. What we've, some habits are what we've been passed down, what we've seen from our parents, or what we've seen and how we just cope with money or lack of it. So I think, my job is really working with my clients and help them deal with, kind of look through the emotional side of it, but also come up with a plan to prevent those, or to plan on those emergencies of things that we can't foresee happening. Retirement, education planning, things like that are kind of far off in the future, but not necessarily that we focus on every day.
Absolutely. We definitely need to change our mindsets around money, right? And how it's not a burden for us. It's not this thing this intangible goal to reach, but that it's very attainable to make it, to save it, and to get it to capitalize it and get it to work for us, right? In a way that's really beneficial and that help us to not only in this lifetime, but for our generations in the future.
Right. Yeah. And to your comment about shifting the mindset, I agree wholeheartedly on that. And sometimes I've noticed, and even from myself, that when I'm activated and dealing with something like, especially in the past when had to do with money, and I really was having difficulties and managing my emotions around it so I could move things forward. And I notice this with my clients as well. Oftentimes I'll talk about just being able to regulate the emotions that are coming in. So do some grounding practices. There's that phrase like a spiritual bypass, right? And so one of the things I work with my clients on is, energetically, when we're coming from a place of where we're more calm and grounded, and then when we're thinking of things and shifting our mindset, then we're more in alignment with what we truly desire in life, and things just go so much faster. And so I agree about the mindset, and also there's an and to it, which is the noticing what's coming up. Because if someone is coming from a place of like activation of fear and frighten, and then to shift the mindset and to start saying sometimes it may take a little while.
Mhm.
But if it's like, okay, I'm experiencing a lot of fear in this moment right now, how can I bring some sort of calm into my experience before moving into this activity? And then moving forward, I've just noticed it's made a huge difference for myself and for many of the women that I've coached, and being able to move things forward. And also just saying like, I'm just getting started, right? I mean, especially if we don't know these things, we weren't taught them, we weren't exposed to them on the insurance side with all the financial planning things, but everyone, we're just getting started, and that's okay, right? I'm just learning, and that we always tend to find our way anyway, and we're exactly where we're meant to be in the moment in time. So all is good.
Yeah, and if I may add, I think that one of the things that helps people, I always say, I want to know, I want a picture of the future. Somebody paint a picture of the future for me, right? I mean, we plan so much for vacations, we plan when we play games, but often we don't plan for our finances.
Mhm.
And it's when we do, for example, I just did this for a client today, and she's 75, she's not starting her life, but that doesn't mean that if you are at that part of your life, you don't have anxiety around money. And she did some really good saving at the beginning of her life, and now she's transitioning into assisted living. And just having a picture of her financial plan and understanding that the funds are going to be accessible to take care of her needs, from long-term care insurance to when does her pension come in, when does her IRA distributions come in. It's really important to understand, like, again, what is the objective of each account and what does this look like in the long term. Now, on the opposite side, if you're starting out, I mean, just starting to put money aside and seeing, is it more advantageous to put it in something like a Roth IRA, a 401k? What is your employer giving you? Just putting all those pieces together and making a projection for someone could really give you a lot of peace of mind, because you might have this idea in your head that you have to start out with millions of dollars. And in fact, that's not the case. If you start little by little and begin to see the power of compounding interest over time and the tax deductions that you could also get from some of these tax advantageous vehicles, then you begin to see what your future is going to start looking like, and that begins to reduce your stress because now you have a game plan, right? And it's all about a game plan, just like the football players. If you want to win the Super Bowl, you got to have a game plan. And so it's the same thing when it comes to your finances. And I have seen that people get really excited. I have had clients that tell me, hey, this is working out pretty well. Do you think that I could retire in 5 years? Or maybe based on this saving strategy, maybe I don't have to work at this job that's very stressful. Maybe I could cut back a little bit and work a job that it would be just sufficient to pay for my living expenses because I've been able to build my nest egg that's sufficient to offset some of the other things. So I think that's where financial planning gets really exciting, and it's a very powerful a very powerful tool for everybody who's out there. You should definitely, it's like if you want to be, an Olympic athlete, you still have to have a coach, okay, to get there. So it doesn't matter how good you are. We get a lot of do-it-yourselfers, and you are great, and you might be really good at it, but a coach could really expedite your growth.
I like what you said there, Catalina, when you're talking about, hey, be more prepared. And I know when we're talking about, property and casualty insurance and, looking at your policies, I saw a comment by Mr. Ray that said, well, these policies, are it's so, it's too confusing for the average person to understand.
Yeah.
I agree. It took me a while as a licensed claims adjuster to learn how to read the policy. I got lucky. I actually stumbled upon a policy interpretation class, and I took it maybe about 5 times in order to understand how the policy language reads, because it is written by the counsel and the attorneys that work for the insurance company. What I can suggest, at the very least, contact your insurance companies and ask them for, you want two things. You want a full copy of your entire policy. Now, usually when you ask for that, they're just going to give you a few pages, and that's usually just your declarations page, which is just a snapshot of your policy, but it's a good place to start. But if they do that, then say, hey, I also need all of the corresponding policy forms that make up my policy, right? And then look at that declarations page. I'm not saying you're going to learn policy, legalese overnight. I didn't either. But what you can do at the very least, look at your declarations page. It's going to tell you some things. It's going to tell you your premiums, which is mostly what most people look at, right? But you want to look at, what is your policy limit for your property, whether that's your vehicle or whether that's your house. How much is the maximum limit that you have agreed to pay premiums for in the case that your house is so severely destroyed that it has to be rebuilt from the ground up? that could be something that, you may want to get an appraisal done and make sure that that number is accurate. Same thing for your personal property. For some of us, when we buy that first house or even that second house, maybe the first time we got that house, we got borrowed furniture, hand-me-downs from friends and family and so forth. And maybe now it's been 10 years, you had a promotion, you replaced all the furniture, you may have made some additions to the house, you may have done some renovations to increase the property value, so forth and so on. Look at those numbers and see, determine, does that make sense? Like I said, make inventory of your home, because then you can tell, oh, this stuff is worth a lot more than what I thought, because we're not thinking about the little things that add up, right? And then even looking into the portions of your policy for the additional coverages that are there. And you can see all of that on the declarations page. You'll be able to see your policy limits, verify that the address is correct. One thing I would like to, as an extra note, if you're in the process of getting a divorce, do not forget to update your agent with your divorce decree so that one person is on the policy versus both, because that happens too. And then the check has to be still written to both individuals. So it's different things like that that you can look at on your policies, on your declarations page, and start to look at them and stare at them a little bit and get familiar with those numbers and make sure that it makes sense for you. Also, a key kind of note that I would like to add is, usually the higher you pay in premiums, and I get it, it is getting expensive to have and maintain insurance. But the higher that premium is, the more you're willing to pay on a monthly basis. That usually goes hand in hand with the decrease of your deductible amount. So more premiums equals lesser deductibles, higher deductibles equals less premiums. Okay, so all of that information may help you, and then that way you can be more better prepared in an emergency, and you're not blindsided by, oh, I had one time for Harvey. This woman had a $45,000 deductible. Now, of course, she was in a $500,000 home, and surprisingly, she was actually completely aware of her deductible. She said, "Yep, I know what it is, and yep, and that's why I'm making a claim. I'm willing to pay it." So just know that whatever you decline on your policy, what you're actually saying to your insurance company is, you know what, I want to pay for my deductible plus these extra coverages that I've opted out of. I want to pay for those out of pocket. So the more that we educate ourselves on things like that, even if you don't understand exactly how the coverages read and work, get that snapshot page just to begin with and see, would it cost $250,000, for instance, for me to rebuild this house, or $200,000 to replace every single piece of furniture, every widget, every houseware, every dish in this home?
I think, Charlene, to add on to that, I think that's really great information, and you laid that out perfectly. I also think the benefit of having a representative or someone who's going to represent you, I think you just articulated that really throughout. So I think sometimes people hesitate seeing a professional in their area because they feel it can be more expensive. And I think sometimes it's the exact opposite. There's a cost of not having a professional review your existing coverages, your financial plan, and trying to do it yourself. Because there are these nuances and these legalese that can really trip you up, especially in the insurance process, Charlene, as you pointed out, that if you're not aware of them, that can end up costing you a lot more in the long run. So I think there's a huge benefit to seeking professional assistance or seeking professional help or guidance. And I think sometimes culturally we've been kind of learned or taught, sometimes it's frowned upon to do that. And we always want to focus on, and I'm a strong believer in self-education, but I also believe that partnering with someone professional who you can trust, I think can save you in the long run as well, especially someone who's going to represent you, who you trust.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the educational component on all of this is so important. Because again, there's an assurance side in which that comment was about how it can be confusing for an individual to understand just financial services as a whole for the average person trying to figure out, how much should I save? What do I need to do? Who do I go to? Right. That's that I've come across often with different women that I've coached. They're not familiar at all with the different type of financial professionals that are available that can support them and help them achieve their goals. And me personally, I tell all of the women that I work with that my goal is to get them into an office with a financial planner the sooner rather than later, because I understand just from working in financial services the value and the benefit of having a financial plan and knowing where you're going and what risks there are in case you're not able to continue on your plan. But again, there's just so much information. So I find it really important to be able to educate my clients as much as possible about what different things are available for them, how to assess their situation, and then also just to have the conversation and have an understanding of what they're looking at. So when they do go meet with financial planners, that they're actually more confident to do so, and we'll do it faster. Because I've also realized a lot of the women that I coach, they may feel like I don't need a plan. I don't know if I should have one. I'm not ready yet, or just having a lot of shame, over their current situation or what's happened in the past. But once we're able to work together on working on some of their goals and they have an action plan and they're making some significant changes with their behaviors around money, they feel so much more confident and ready and willing to meet with a financial planner. So I'm loving this conversation that we're having today between all of us.
I agree 100%. So does everybody here know what their policy limits are on their homes? Brandon?
I know where to go to look at it.
I definitely know my insurance I have available. Yeah.
Yeah, I recently looked at that, living in South Florida. I think that's something that you do every year.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, how do we reduce the cost of this darn thing? But maybe Charlene needs to look at it and give me some feedback. I'll talk to you after the webinar.
I am more than happy to do that. I do it for all my families and friends anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's great.
Yeah, I'll definitely add in like what so how should someone go about formalizing all of their plan, right? There's the insurance, there's the financial planning piece of it, there's the advisory piece of it. How does someone even kind of begin to know what to look at first, right? Because all of it can be overwhelming. Is it because I know, like, kind of Brandon, what you stated earlier was like we get into crisis mode and then we take action, right? As opposed to always doing things in a place of joy. I was talking to someone actually this week about how we don't do anything from a place of joy when it comes to finances. I was like, something has to happen trauma wise, or someone has to ask a question which piques our interest to maybe do something in response to that. But there's never really a joyous moment where it's like, hey, let me just go do this thing. And when I go down that hole, like, where is the place I should really start? And that's, open to anyone to respond to. Where is the joy in finance? Maybe that's the thing, right?
Where's the joy?
Oh my gosh. I see the joy every day in finance.
Let's talk about that too, because there's, that always comes from a point of maybe avoiding stress, but let's talk about the joy that you all have seen.
I think the avoidance of stress brings you joy, right? Like the less stressed you are and the less anxiety you have and the more prepared you are, I feel brings you more confidence. You feel more confident. Like, yes, I know what to expect. I know what I'm going into with this loss or whatever the case may be. And as a result, I now feel better about it. I feel like I think it's about control, right? That feeling of, I feel like I am in control of my destiny when it comes to my finances or my insurance coverages. Recently, actually, just this past weekend, I just lost a cousin. And, we're asking his mother, okay, what are we going to do? What is the burial plans? So forth and so on. And she had no plans. He didn't have any form of in life insurance whatsoever. And she's like, well, I'm just gonna cremate him. And I'm like, okay. Then what? Are we gonna have a memorial? And so my mother and her sisters have had to kind of chip in and kind of, one, she's bereaving, her first and oldest child, now, being transitioning on. And she just, when you're in that state, again, like we were saying, we're crisis mode, being more reactive than proactive. She had no plans. I think one of the things, unfortunately, like you were saying, Dana, it is a lot. It can be overwhelming. You are going to have to tackle each individual, aspect of your financial security, insurance coverage, security, one by one. I would say one place you can start is with an estate planner. With my cousin passing, I had a very hard conversation with both of my parents. I'm like, we've got to, I don't want to have this conversation with you all, but we need to talk about your estate planning, and we need to do it now because tomorrow's not promised to any of us. And I need to know exactly of what you have that you want to pass on to somebody else. We need to do it in writing. We need to get the lawyers involved. I need to know a fortified plan because I'm one of those people that I will jump in the casket with you. And so I don't want to have to worry about um, how I'm going to divvy up my mother or my father's estate, or somebody coming to me and saying, well, your mother said I can have X, Y, and Z, or your father said this and that, because we know how things can get in times of loss and bereavement with certain people. And so, they both kind of looked at me like, okay, but I'm like, hey, I'm serious, and they both agree, like, yes, we do understand and we do agree. That releases my stress already in the future, for what may be coming down my way, because I am the oldest between both of my parents, and my little brother will probably pass on this responsibility of all of that administrative, paperwork and so forth, and all the logistics to me. And so it's like, let's have this conversation and let's have it now. I don't want to, you know, have my hair sitting on top of my head and, want to throw dirt on top of it, and still have to figure out what I'm going to do with my parents' estate and their belongings and their debts and so forth and so on.
Yeah, what I would add to that, and Charlene, maybe this is just another perspective, and definitely I'm a little biased by virtue of what I do, but I see us as financial planners sort of like the internist, right? Where we can look at you, see what your needs are, and then bring in the specific specialist. Maybe bring in the CPA, bring in the estate planning attorney, bring in the insurance agent to help address each pillar of financial planning. And because we have a high level view of the personal finances, we know where the gaps are, and we could bridge those gaps better. I find that when a client has the financial advisor on their side and understands their current situation, often we know what questions to ask that people don't even know they should be asking. We could expedite things. We could talk the tax piece as well to help reduce taxes and prepare for that ahead of time. We could talk to the estate planner and say, hey, these are the accounts that we have. How do we title these accounts? How do we, address beneficiary designations? Does the family have a summary for that? Because we are going to be there on the other side in case something happens, right? So I think for all of these pillars, the financial planner becomes the central person to help navigate each of these transitions and each of those pieces for the clients.
Yeah,
Really like
I,
that. Yes.
I like that, Kelly. And to add to that, I think just from a personal perspective, I mean, I'll speak for me. We've all made bad financial decisions, and we've all bought something that we shouldn't have bought, or did something financially based on maybe an emotional state. But the difference when you've planned for something financially, when you've saved up for it, or you have the credit. I mean, I think that brings about this level of peace, this level of freedom per se, where you're going on vacation. Again, I'm in California. I'm not far from Vegas. I mean, I've been to Vegas in times when I shouldn't have financially. I've been to Vegas in times when I properly saved for it and planned for it. So it's one of those situations where there's a certain level of peace that I had when I made the right decision, when I went at the right time, when I actually planned for it, when I took care of my priorities ahead of time, versus the latter of just trying to squeeze by and making a poor decision to go. And so when you talk about stressful or stress-free, or the joy in finance, I think it's just planning. Sometimes it's about being patient, come up with a plan, and following that, and then feel that reward in doing something for yourself or whatever it is you're trying to accomplish.
Yes, I agree with you, Brandon. I love that with the joy in finance. That's a great question, Dana, that you asked, where is it at? And I think it's all about celebrating the wins. So a win could be scheduling a call with a consultation with a planner or a coach or a financial counselor or someone. Just even taking that step is a win for somebody who may not have done that anything like that before. Celebrating the wins throughout the whole process, and also anytime you show courage. So having these difficult conversations, things you may be avoiding or not wanting to talk about with somebody, with a professional, like I said, either a coach or a planner or insurance agent, whoever it is, that's a win and that shows courage. And every time we show courage, that's a starting point for transformation. So I just want to invite everybody to remember that there can be joy in finance, going through the uncomfortable part of it as well. And it's where that courage comes in and we can find that joy in that courage.
I could not agree more. I absolutely love that you said that, Leah, because there's definitely joy in all the things that we do, all the things that you all do. This has been an incredible conversation. I feel like we can keep this going for a really long time. I think your backgrounds and expertise are a great addition, because it's like there's all different levels to how we need to utilize our different skill sets or things that we need to think about that we just kind of put to the side again until something happens. But there's that time to find that joy in those big wins and those small wins. So I'm glad we're kind of ending on that note. And I want to thank you all so much for joining our conversation, for letting us dive into your brains, your ideas, your thoughts, and all that you do for your industry and for your clients. So thank you for joining us in this conversation. And thank you for everyone who has tuned in, and definitely come back for our next episode, which will be our last conversation for the year on December 4th, as we kind of kick things off going into 2025. And I'm like, it's just weird to say that out loud. I don't think I'm ready for things to turn over. I think we have another week, and then we start seeing holiday stuff if we're not doing that already. CVS is always the place I try to avoid for a bit, because they fast track everything. They fast track your life.
Costco's like that too. That too.
Oh yeah.
It's just like, avoid it until I'm ready. But thank you everyone for joining us for another conversation, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Again, December 4th will be our next conversation. Take care.
Have a good one.